She stood in the hangar, arms folded tight, face carved in arrogance. "Fix this jet," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "And I'll marry you." Laughter rippled through the engineers, the cameras, the investors watching, but he didn't laugh. He just looked at her, calm, steady, determined. And that's when the story began. A story no one expected, because what happened next shocked the entire world. Marcus Lang had always believed that machines had hearts. You just had to listen closely enough to hear them beat. He came from the south side of Chicago, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. His world was noise, the clatter of tools, the rhythm of engines, and the hum of faith. By 27, Marcus had built a quiet reputation in the city's underbelly, fixing what no one else could. Old Cadillacs, diesel trucks, even city buses. If it had a motor, he could make it breathe again. But this was different. This wasn't a car. It was a jet, and not just any jet. Jetlux's new Falcon X prototype, a $700 million corporate gamble designed to redefine private aviation. A luxury aircraft that could cross continents faster than any in its class. Every executive, investor, and journalist in that hangar knew what it meant. Power, prestige, and billions on the line. And there she was, Isabella Hart, the face of Jetlux, sharp, beautiful, dangerous. A woman who had clawed her way through boardrooms and backstabbers, now standing as CEO of one of the biggest aviation companies in America. The press called her the Ice Queen. Employees called her Heart Attack. Marcus just called her Ma'am. He had been called in after Jetlux's own engineers failed to diagnose a critical failure in the prototype's main propulsion system. The company was weeks away from a major investor demo. Without a fix, everything, years of research, billions in stock value, her personal reputation, would burn. When Marcus arrived, everyone laughed. A mechanic from the south side to fix this? Isabella smirked when she saw him. Her stilettos clicked as she approached, every step echoing across the silent hangar. "Are you lost, Mr. Lang?" she asked, folding her arms. "The maintenance garage is outside." Marcus wiped his hands on a rag, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "You called for a mechanic. I'm here to work." The engineers chuckled. She didn't. She just stared, unimpressed. Then she said it, that line that would follow her forever. "Fine, fix this jet," she said, loud enough for the cameras. "And if you do, I'll marry you." The crowd roared with laughter. Marcus felt his stomach twist, but he didn't answer. He didn't walk away. He simply nodded once and turned toward the jet. That was the moment everything changed. The hours that followed were a blur of noise, tension, and humiliation. Every move Marcus made was watched, whispered about, ridiculed. One engineer muttered, "He's just here to make it worse." Another snickered, "He's playing with toys he doesn't understand." But Marcus ignored them all. He put on his gloves, rolled up his sleeves, and began listening, truly listening, to the jet. The Falcon X wasn't just a machine. It was a heartbeat interrupted. The readings were wrong, the sensors out of sync, but there was something deeper, something off in the system design itself. Hours turned into days. Marcus worked when others left. He ate beside the engines, slept on the floor, talked to the machine as if it were alive. One night, around 2 a.m., he found it, a hidden fault buried deep in the propulsion alignment system. A small bypass switch, intentionally miswired. Not an accident, a setup. He frowned, tracing it back through the schematics. The wiring made no sense. It wasn't standard Jetlux code. Someone had deliberately changed it, a trap designed to fail. Marcus's hands trembled. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. Just then, footsteps echoed behind him. Isabella. She stepped out of the shadows, her heels clicking softly on the concrete floor. "You're still here?" she asked, her tone colder than the steel walls. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied quietly, eyes fixed on the circuit board. "I think I found something strange." "Strange?" she smirked. "You mean you don't understand it?" He looked up, meeting her gaze. "No," he said evenly. "I mean someone doesn't want this jet to fly." The smirk faded for just a second. Then it returned, sharper. "Do your job, Mr. Lang," she said, "and leave the conspiracies to people who can afford them." She turned and walked away, her perfume trailing behind like arrogance itself. Marcus exhaled slowly. He wasn't crazy. He knew what he saw. Someone inside Jetlux was sabotaging this project. But who and why? By the end of that week, the whispers had grown. "Marcus is causing delays. He's tampering with proprietary systems. He doesn't belong here." They tried to kick him off the floor, but Marcus refused. He worked harder, smarter. He mapped the entire engine control system by hand, line by line, code by code. He slept 3 hours a night, surviving on caffeine and stubbornness. He didn't notice the cameras capturing his every move, the silent judgment from the gallery above where Isabella watched. Until one afternoon, a loud spark shot from the engine bay. The system went black. Engineers jumped back. Smoke rose from the side panel, and Isabella's voice cut through the chaos. "I knew it. He's in over his head." The crowd murmured. Marcus coughed, wiping soot from his face. "It's not over," he said quietly. But she'd already turned away. That night, as the hangar emptied, Marcus sat alone under the flickering lights. He stared at the lifeless jet, the machine he was told he could never understand. He whispered, "You and me, we're not done yet." And then, for the first time in days, blaze, the jet's lights flickered back, a faint hum, as if answering his promise. Marcus smiled. He didn't need her approval. He didn't need applause. He just needed time, because he was about to prove every last one of them wrong. But little did they know, everything was about to change. Days passed like smoke in the wind. The hangar was alive with noise again, clanking tools, shouting engineers, and whispers that carried Marcus's name like a curse. They said he was wasting time. They said he didn't belong, but none of them saw what Marcus saw. Deep in the Falcon X's systems, something was wrong. Not a technical glitch, a trap. Every diagram, every circuit, every calibration. It was designed to fail, and whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. Marcus stood in front of the massive jet, his reflection faint on the polished metal. He could see the doubt in his own eyes. For a moment, he thought of walking away, but then he remembered his mother's voice. Soft, strong, unbreakable. Son, they'll try to make you believe you ain't enough, but you don't prove them wrong by shouting. You prove them wrong by shining. So he went back to work. He tore through the system again, wire by wire. Every line of code he inspected revealed more inconsistencies, small, almost invisible errors that no real engineer would overlook. It wasn't just a mistake, it was sabotage. One morning, Isabella walked in with her executive team, perfectly dressed, surrounded by silence. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "today we evaluate progress." Marcus was under the jet, tools in hand. When he heard her voice, he froze for a second, then kept working. An engineer whispered nearby, "This should be good." Isabella stopped near Marcus. "Mr. Lang," she said, voice smooth but sharp, "you've been here almost 2 weeks. Jetlux is burning money by the hour. Tell us, are you close?" Marcus rolled out from under the jet and stood. He wiped his hands and met her eyes. "I found something you should see," he said. He held out a small tablet. "Schematic data, error logs, alignment graphs. These readings don't match your original system layout. Someone changed the configuration on purpose." The executives exchanged glances. One of them, a tall man with silver hair and a smug smile, chuckled. "So now our mechanic is a detective?" Isabella's expression didn't change. "Are you accusing Jetlux engineers of sabotage?" she asked quietly. Marcus hesitated. "I'm saying someone doesn't want this jet to fly." The silver-haired man stepped forward. "Or maybe you don't know what you're doing," he said, voice rising. "Maybe this whole act is just to cover your failure." Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked at Isabella. She didn't defend him. She didn't say a word. Instead, she just turned to her team and said, "End this test. I'll make the call." They left. Marcus stood alone, humiliated. That day, the hangar lights dimmed early, and inside Marcus's chest, something cracked. He packed his tools slowly, the echoes of laughter still haunting him. But as he turned to leave, he noticed something strange. The silver-haired executive had left his briefcase behind. A sleek black case with Jetlux insignia, half open. Inside, a flash drive. Marcus hesitated. His conscience screamed, "Don't," but something deeper, instinct, said look. He plugged it into the console. What he saw made his blood run cold. Encrypted files, internal memos, system override codes, and one folder labeled Project Falcon X Failure Plan. He opened it. Inside were simulation reports, showing the jet exploding mid-test. The report was dated 2 weeks before Marcus was even hired. The sabotage wasn't an accident. It was a cover-up. Someone wanted the project to fail, to destroy Isabella Hart's leadership and take over Jetlux. And Marcus, he was just a scapegoat. He heard footsteps, fast, sharp. He yanked the drive out and slipped it in his pocket. When he looked up, Isabella was there. She stood in the doorway, eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" Marcus froze. "Just packing up." Her eyes flicked to the console. "You were in the system, weren't you?" "No, ma'am," Marcus said carefully. "Just checking diagnostics." She stepped closer, heels echoing like judgment. "Do you realize what you've done? You've already caused delays. If you're caught accessing internal files," Marcus interrupted, voice firm. "You're being set up, Ms. Hart." Her expression faltered, just for a heartbeat. "What did you say?" "I found proof," he said quietly. "Someone's sabotaging the Falcon X. The failures aren't random. They were written into the design." She blinked once, then her voice softened, dangerously. "Give me the proof." Marcus hesitated. "I can't, not yet." Her tone hardened. "You're playing a dangerous game, Mr. Lang." He met her eyes. "So are you." Silence filled the hangar. Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the half-light, heart pounding. He didn't know if she believed him, but he knew one thing for sure. The truth was bigger than either of them. That night, Marcus drove home in silence. The streets blurred past, neon lights flashing like warnings. He reached his small apartment, locked the door, and sat at his table with the flash drive in his hand. He opened his laptop and began decrypting the files. More data appeared. Documents, emails, financial records. And one name kept showing up. Victor Cross, Jetlux's chief operating officer. The silver-haired man who mocked him. Victor was planning to destroy Isabella, leak the Falcon X failure, crash Jetlux stock, and then buy the company's assets through shell corporations. The fake malfunction, the failed engine tests, the humiliation, all part of his plan. And Marcus had just stepped right into the middle of it. By morning, Marcus knew what he had to do. He couldn't just expose Victor. He had to fix the jet first and prove it could fly. That was the only way anyone would believe him. But as he arrived at the hangar, something was wrong. The guards stopped him at the gate. "Mr. Lang, you've been suspended. Orders from the top." Marcus Marcus's chest went cold. From who? CEO's office, the guard said. Isabella had shut him out. He drove away in silence. Every thought collided inside his head. Anger, betrayal, confusion. She didn't believe him. After everything he'd risked, she'd cut him off. He pulled over near the highway, stepped out, and stared at the city skyline. His heart ached, but his resolve didn't. He whispered to himself, they want to play dirty? Fine, but I'll show them who they're dealing with. The next night, he broke back into the hangar. The cameras were down for maintenance. The guards, distracted. Marcus moved like a ghost through the shadows. He reached the jet and plugged in his own system. Line by line, he began to rewrite the corrupted code, bypassing Victor's sabotage, restoring every circuit to its proper form. Hours passed. Sweat poured down his face. His laptop beeped softly. One system restored, then another. Finally, the engine control lit up. For the first time in weeks, the Falcon X hummed, a low, steady vibration that filled the air with power. Marcus smiled through exhaustion. He whispered, "That's it, baby. You're alive again." He didn't hear the footsteps behind him, didn't see the flashlight beam cut through the darkness. "Step away from the jet," a voice ordered. Marcus froze. He turned. Guards surrounded him, and standing behind them was Isabella. Her eyes were unreadable. "Mr. Lang," she said softly, "you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Marcus's heart sank. He tried to speak, but the guards grabbed him. They dragged him out as his tools clattered to the floor. The jet's engine lights flickered behind him, alive, humming, ready. He shouted, "You're being played! Check the flight logs!" But she didn't respond. She just turned away. And in that moment, Marcus realized the truth. He wasn't fighting for the jet anymore. He was fighting for his name, for his worth, for something no one could take away. And when the truth came out, no one could believe their eyes. The next morning, headlines screamed across Jetlux news boards. Mechanic arrested for breaking into hangar. Jet project halted. Marcus Lang's name was everywhere. Not as the man fixing a miracle machine, but as the man who tried to destroy it. They dragged his name through the dirt. Blogs, newsrooms, gossip forums, all said the same thing. Black mechanic sabotaged a $700 million jet, and the woman he thought might believe him. She said nothing. Isabella Hart kept her silence. Marcus sat in a dim police cell that night. His hands were dirty, his heart heavier than metal. They took his laptop, his notes, the flash drive. Every proof gone. He stared at the wall and whispered, "This is what they wanted, to bury me." Then the cell door creaked open. A woman entered, slim, brown-skinned, wearing a Jetlux badge. "Marcus Lang?" she said quietly. "I'm Keisha. I work in the data systems division." He frowned. "You with Jetlux?" She nodded. "And I know you're not lying." Keisha sat beside him, her voice trembling. "Before they took you in, I saw something. Victor Cross accessed the Falcon X database minutes before you did. He deleted internal reports." I couldn't say anything. "He's powerful." Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his tired eyes. "Do you still have proof?" She pulled out a small chip drive. "I made a backup copy, but if they find out, I'm done." Marcus's heart raced. "You don't know what this means." She smiled faintly. "I think I do." A guard called from outside. "Time's up." Before leaving, Keisha pressed the drive into his palm. "Keep fighting," she whispered. "You're not the villain here." And just like that, she was gone. Marcus sat alone again. For the first time in days, he smiled. Maybe fate wasn't done with him yet. Hours later, he was released, quietly, without explanation. No charges, no apology, just silence. But he knew why. Someone inside Jetlux didn't want more attention. The truth was close now, too close. He went home, shut the blinds, and powered up his old laptop. The chip loaded slowly, data flooding the screen. He saw email chains between Victor Cross and private investors, leaked schematics, fake test results, even bribe logs. One file stopped him cold. It was a recording, an internal Jetlux meeting. Victor's voice echoed through the speakers. "When the Falcon fails, Isabella will take the fall. The board will panic. Then I'll buy out her shares for pennies." "And the mechanic?" another voice asked. Victor laughed. "He's perfect. Nobody will question a fall guy from the streets." Marcus clenched his fists. They planned everything. Every failure. Every lie. He whispered, "You made me your pawn. Now watch me become your checkmate." The next day, Marcus called someone unexpected. Isabella's personal assistant. "Tell her I have information that can save her company," he said. But the assistant laughed. "She doesn't want to hear from you, Mr. Lang." He hung up, jaw tight. He knew Isabella wouldn't come willingly. So he decided to bring the truth to her, whether she liked it or not. Meanwhile, Isabella sat alone in her glass office high above the city. The pressure was crushing her. Jetlux investors were threatening to pull out. The media questioned her leadership. And behind closed doors, Victor Cross was whispering poison into the board's ears. "Ma'am," her assistant said softly, "the board wants a private vote tonight about your position." Isabella stared out the window, expression blank. "Already?" "Yes. Mr. Cross called it personally." She exhaled, steady but shaken. She had clawed her way up this empire, and now it was slipping away. That night, she drove to the hangar one last time. Quiet, empty, abandoned. The Falcon X sat in darkness like a sleeping beast. She ran her hand along the fuselage, whispering, "I gave everything for you, and still, they call me cold." A voice echoed from behind. blind. No, they call you blind. She turned sharply. Marcus stood near the entrance, holding a tablet. His face was tired, his eyes on fire. You have no right to be here, Isabella snapped. Marcus stepped closer. Maybe not, but I've got something you need to see. He placed the tablet on a crate and pressed play. Victor's voice filled the hangar, his confession. Her eyes widened. Each word hit like a bullet. By the time the recording ended, Isabella's hands were shaking. She whispered, "He set me up." Marcus nodded. "And he used me to do it." She stepped back, her confidence melting into disbelief. "How did you even—" "Because I listened," Marcus said quietly. "Not just to the engine, but to people. The way lies hum louder than machines." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Isabella turned away, voice trembling. "They'll never believe this." "Then let's make them believe," Marcus said. "Tomorrow, the investor demo. We'll fly the Falcon ourselves." She turned, stunned. "That's insane. It hasn't even passed safety." He cut her off. "It will. I fixed it. Every wire, every line of code. It's ready." Her breath caught. She wanted to doubt him, but deep down, she saw something she hadn't before. Faith, conviction, truth. Hours before dawn, the two of them worked side by side in the hangar. For the first time, Isabella wasn't giving orders. She was listening. Marcus explained the calibration systems, the wiring bypass, the sabotage code he removed. She nodded, absorbing every detail. "You did all this alone?" she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Not alone. The jet was talking to me." Isabella almost laughed. "You're insane." "Maybe," Marcus said, "but you'll thank me when she flies." Morning broke. JetLux investors filled the observation deck. Reporters, cameras, lights. Victor Cross stood at the front, smirking like a man already crowned king. He addressed the audience. "Unfortunately, due to internal complications, the Falcon X project is—" A deep roar interrupted him. Everyone turned. The massive hangar doors were opening. Out rolled the Falcon X, engines humming, gleaming under sunlight. Isabella walked beside Marcus toward the cockpit. Every eye widened. Every whisper stopped. Victor's smile vanished. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Taking back control," Isabella said coldly. She and Marcus climbed aboard. The hangar filled with mechanical thunder as the engines came alive. The ground trembled. The air shook. And then, the impossible happened. The Falcon X lifted off. Smooth, steady, flawless. People gasped. Reporters shouted. Victor's face turned pale. Inside the cockpit, Isabella stared at Marcus, speechless. He smiled. "Told you she'd fly." She let out a breathless laugh, eyes glistening. For the first time, the Ice Queen melted. Down below, chaos erupted. Phones ringing, cameras flashing, the world watching live as the failed jet soared across the sky. Marcus gripped the controls, calm and focused. He had done it. Against every lie, every doubt, every insult, the impossible was flying. When they landed, the hangar exploded in applause. Investors rushed forward, stunned. Reporters screamed questions, but before anyone could speak, Victor Cross stormed toward them, furious. "You've made a huge mistake," he shouted. "This isn't over." Marcus smiled faintly. "You're right." He handed Isabella the flash drive. "Because this is just the beginning." The Falcon X's first flight changed everything. The world had just watched the impossible. A man they mocked had resurrected a billion-dollar dream, but the real storm was just about to begin. By noon, JetLux's headquarters was chaos. Investors flooded the conference floor. Reporters lined the lobby, cameras flashing, demanding answers. And up in the boardroom, Isabella Hart walked in, calm, sharp, unstoppable. Victor Cross was already there. His suit was perfect, but his face was pale. "Congratulations," he sneered. "You've managed to fly an unstable prototype without authorization." Isabella didn't flinch. "Unstable?" she repeated. "Funny, it looked flawless from up there," the board members murmured. Victor tried to control the room, slamming a folder on the table. "She's reckless. She broke corporate protocol. This is grounds for removal." But Isabella just smiled. "Before you finish," she said smoothly, "maybe everyone should hear this." She nodded to the AV tech. The screen flickered to life. Victor's voice filled the room, that same recording Marcus had played in the hangar. "When the Falcon fails, Isabella will take the fall. Then I'll buy her shares for pennies." The board froze. Some gasped. Victor's face drained of color. Wait, this is fake," he stammered. "She's framing me." But Isabella wasn't done. She pressed another button. New evidence flashed. Encrypted financial logs, transfer receipts, emails from Victor's private server. Marcus's digital footprints had revealed everything. Every lie, every bribe, every manipulation. The room fell into silence. Isabella stood tall, her voice steady as glass. "You tried to destroy this company. You framed an innocent man, and you almost succeeded." Victor lunged forward, shouting, "You think they'll believe?" But before he could finish, 2 federal agents entered the room. "Victor Cross," one said, holding up a badge, "you're under arrest for corporate fraud, market manipulation, and attempted sabotage." The entire board erupted in murmurs. Reporters outside caught every flash, every angle, every second. Victor's face twisted as they cuffed him. He turned toward Isabella. "You'll regret this." She met his eyes coldly. "No, Victor, I'll remember this." The The doors shut. He was gone. Down in the lobby, cameras flashed as agents escorted Victor out in handcuffs. And through the chaos, Marcus walked in quietly, wearing his oil-stained jacket, face calm. People turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. That's him, the mechanic who fixed the Falcon. He was right all along. Reporters swarmed. Mr. Lang, how did you know? Are you working with Jetlux now? Is it true the CEO mocked you? Marcus smiled faintly and said, I just listened to the engine. The crowd went silent, as if they understood something deeper. Upstairs, Isabella watched through the glass wall. For the first time in years, her eyes softened. She motioned for security. Bring him up. When Marcus entered her office, she stood from behind her desk, not as a CEO, but as a woman humbled by truth. I owe you an apology, she said quietly. You owe me a chance to keep working, Marcus replied. She almost laughed. You're something else, he shrugged. So's that jet. There was a pause, comfortable this time. No judgment, no arrogance, just respect. That evening, Jetlux held an emergency press conference. The hall was filled to the brim. Media, investors, employees, and spectators watching live around the world. Isabella stepped onto the stage, spotlights blazing. Her voice was calm, commanding, honest. Today, Jetlux faced sabotage from within, she said. But thanks to one man's integrity, the truth came to light. She turned slightly. Marcus stepped out from behind the curtain. The crowd roared. Reporters shouted questions. He didn't answer any. He just smiled humbly, hands clasped in front of him. Isabella continued, This man, a mechanic, restored not only our jet, but our faith in what this company stands for. Skill, dedication, truth. Marcus looked at her, speechless. For a moment, time froze. The same woman who once mocked him was now honoring him before the entire world. After the conference, she found him standing outside on the balcony overlooking the city lights. The wind tugged at his jacket. Big day? She said softly. He chuckled. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. She walked closer, her tone warm now. You know, I said something stupid once. He smiled without looking at her. You mean the marriage joke? She laughed lightly. Yeah, that one. There was a pause. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. She looked at him. You proved me wrong, Marcus. He shook his head. No, ma'am. I just fixed the engine. They both smiled. But deep inside, Isabella knew it wasn't just about the engine anymore. It was about dignity, respect, and redemption. A few days later, Jetlux offered Marcus a permanent position, Chief of Mechanical Innovation. He would lead a new division, training engineers from all backgrounds. No degrees required, just skill and passion. He accepted on one condition, that we start a mentorship program for young mechanics, he said. From the same neighborhoods people forget about, Isabella smiled. Deal. For the first time, Jetlux was more than a company. It was a movement, a symbol that talent had no skin color, no social class, no boundaries. But there was one final twist. When Isabella walked into her office later that week, she found a small box on her desk. Inside was a wrench, the same one Marcus used on the Falcon X, and a note that read, Engines don't judge, people do. Let's change that. She held the wrench in her hands, tears forming quietly in her eyes. And that's when she realized the man she once mocked had taught her more about leadership than any boardroom ever could. She looked out the window toward the runway, where the Falcon X stood under the golden light of dusk. Its wings gleamed like victory, and for the first time, Isabella Hart smiled. Not the smile of power, but the smile of peace. Because finally, the truth had taken flight, and that's when the real story began. They thought the story was over. The jet was fixed. The villain was caught. But life always has one last test for those who rise from the dirt. And for Marcus Lang, that test came when the world started watching him. 2 weeks after the Falcon X launch, Marcus became a phenomenon. Social media called him the Jet Whisperer. News outlets ran his story nonstop. Podcasts, interviews, even a feature on national television. A mechanic who humbled a billionaire CEO and saved a company from collapse. Everywhere he went, people whispered his name with awe, but fame is a double-edged blade. One evening, he was sitting at a cafe downtown, phone buzzing non-stop, when an unfamiliar number flashed across the screen. He almost ignored it until he heard the voice. Marcus Lang? Yeah, who's this? This is Agent Calloway. I'm with the FAA Investigation Bureau. We need to talk. Immediately. His heart sank. About what? About the Falcon X, and what you really did to it. The next morning, Marcus walked into the federal building. White walls, cold stairs. They escorted him into a small room, a single table, 2 chairs, and a file thicker than a phone book. Agent Calloway sat across from him, flipping through pages. You're a talented man, Mr. Lang, she said slowly. But the Falcon X system you reprogrammed, it's showing an undocumented override. Something that doesn't exist in our files. Marcus frowned. I fixed what was broken. That's it. She slid a photo across the table. A close-up of the jet's control chip. This isn't Jetlux tech, she said. Where did you get this modification code? Marcus stared at it. His mind raced. That code? It wasn't his. It was from the corrupted drive he'd found while decoding Victor's sabotage. Had he accidentally left something inside? Calloway leaned in. Mr. Lang, we believe someone embedded embedded a remote access protocol in your patch, possibly to control the jet externally. His blood ran cold. You're saying the Falcon's been hacked? She nodded. Or it could be. We don't know by who. But if that jet takes off again, it could be hijacked mid-air. Hours later, Marcus stood in the Jet Lux hangar again, staring at the Falcon X, his masterpiece, his miracle. Only now it looked dangerous. Isabella approached, worry written all over her face. I heard about the investigation. Tell me it's not true. He shook his head. It's not what they think, but someone left a ghost in the system. If we don't find it, this jet could be used as a weapon. Her expression hardened. Then we find it. Together. He looked at her, surprised. Together? She nodded. You saved my company once. I'm not letting anyone destroy it again. For the first time, they stood as equals. Not CEO and mechanic. Just two people against the storm. That night, the hangar became a war room. Marcus worked through the circuitry. Isabella combed through financial servers, and the engineers, the same ones who once mocked him, followed his every command. Hours passed. Sweat, wires, silence, and then a beep. A red light flickered on the central console. There it is, Marcus whispered, hidden in the navigation AI. The override command was masked inside Victor's earlier code. A remote trigger linked to an offshore server. Someone else was still out there, watching, waiting. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. The Falcon X's engines roared to life. What the... Isabella shouted. Marcus sprinted to the console. It's booting remotely! The jet's lights flashed bright blue. Its landing gear retracted automatically. Within seconds, the massive aircraft started rolling forward on its own. Shut it down! Isabella yelled. I'm trying! Marcus pounded the keyboard, overriding every command manually. Nothing worked. The Falcon X picked up speed, heading straight toward the closed hangar doors. Marcus! I got it! He shouted. At the last second, he reached under the main console, pulled open a fuse panel, and yanked the master relay from its socket. The jet powered down instantly, tires screeching to a halt just inches before the steel doors. Smoke filled the air. Silence followed. Everyone froze. Then, applause. The engineers broke into cheers. Some even cried. He had saved it, again. But Marcus wasn't smiling. He turned to Isabella. Whoever triggered that command still has access. They can try again. She looked shaken. Then we take them down for good. The next day, Marcus and Isabella presented everything to federal investigators. Evidence, logs, server traces. It all pointed to one source, a hidden offshore account registered to a fake shell company in Dubai, owned by Victor Cross's partner. Even from prison, Victor had tried to finish what he started. The FBI launched an immediate cyber operation. Within hours, the network was shut down. The Falcon X's systems were fully secured, and the truth made headlines again. Mechanic prevents jet hijack attempt again. Jet Lux CEO and mechanic save prototype from cyber attack. The world watched, stunned. That evening, Jet Lux held a private press event to reveal the official Falcon X flight demonstration. Dozens of cameras, hundreds of guests, bright lights, and an audience that stretched across the world. As the lights dimmed, Isabella took the stage once more. She spoke with calm confidence, her voice echoing across the hall. This jet represents resilience, she said. It represents faith in people, in talent, in truth. Then she turned toward Marcus, standing in the shadows. And none of this would exist without one man's courage. The crowd erupted in applause. Marcus walked onto the stage, hesitant but strong. Isabella handed him the mic. He paused, scanning the sea of faces. His voice was low but steady. I'm not an engineer, he began. Not a CEO. I'm just a man who believes every person deserves a second chance. When people judged me, I didn't fight them. I fixed what they broke. And today, I realized something. Sometimes, the thing that saves you isn't power. It's purpose. The room was silent, then exploded with emotion. Applause thundered. Some stood, others cried. Even Isabella looked moved, her eyes glistening under the lights. After the ceremony, as the cameras turned away and the hall emptied, Isabella found Marcus standing alone near the Falcon X. He was running his hand along the smooth silver wing, lost in thought. You ever gonna take credit for what you did? She asked softly. He smiled. I don't need credit, I just need engines that fly. She nodded, stepping closer. You know, she said, I meant what I said before. He raised an eyebrow. About what? She smiled faintly. If you ever fix something no one else can, maybe I really will marry you. He laughed for the first time in weeks, a deep, honest laugh. Careful, ma'am, he said. I've got a jet running just fine. They both laughed under the hangar lights. Not as rivals, not as hero and CEO, but as two people who had found something real. Respect born from redemption. The camera zooms out, the Falcon X gleaming under a golden glow, the hangar doors opening to the evening sky. The world watching two people who rewrote the meaning of strength. Because sometimes, the ones we underestimate the most most end up being the ones who save us all. They say time reveals everything, who we really are, what we truly stand for, and what kind of story our name will leave behind. For Marcus Lang and Isabella Hart, time didn't just reveal the truth, it rewrote it. It's been 6 months since the day the Falcon X took flight. Jetlux is no longer just a company, it's a movement. And at the heart of it all stands a man who once swept hangar floors, now leading one of the most advanced innovation teams in the world. Marcus never cared about fame. He cared about purpose. Every morning, he arrived before sunrise, coffee in hand, walking the same hangar where it all began. The smell of oil, metal, and fresh paint felt like home. Isabella watched him sometimes from her office window, quiet, thoughtful. She had seen hundreds of men with ambition, but Marcus had integrity. And in a world obsessed with power, integrity was rare. That morning, she found him under the Falcon X again, half covered in grease, humming softly. "Still can't stay away from her, huh?" she teased. Marcus smiled. "She listens better than most people." She laughed. "Don't tell HR you're in love with a jet." He grinned. "She's the only one who never talks back." They shared that same easy comfort now. Two people who had been through fire and came out stronger, not bitter. Then Isabella said quietly, "We got another offer today." He wiped his hands. "For what?" She hesitated. "A full acquisition. Jetlux could sell the Falcon X tech for $800 million. Marcus froze. "You're not thinking about selling, are you?" She sighed. "It's tempting. It would change everything. The company, the board, maybe even us." He looked at her for a long moment. "Money doesn't fix what purpose builds." Her eyes softened. That line would stay with her forever. Later that week, Jetlux hosted its new apprenticeship graduation, a program Marcus had built himself. Dozens of young mechanics, men and women from tough neighborhoods, stood proudly in front of their families. Their hands were rough, their smiles wide, their dreams alive. Marcus walked onto the small stage, microphone in hand, voice steady but emotional. "You know," he said, "when I was your age, people laughed at me for dreaming too big. They said, 'You're just a mechanic.' But what they didn't know was, that's all it takes to change the world. One broken thing at a time." The crowd applauded. Some cried. Isabella, standing in the back, felt her throat tighten. He continued, "If you ever feel invisible, remember this. Engines don't care where you come from. They just need hands that care enough to fix them." After the ceremony, a boy about 12 walked up to Marcus. He held a small paper airplane, worn and folded. "Mr. Marcus," he said shyly, "my mom says you fixed a jet that couldn't fly. Can you teach me to fix one too?" Marcus knelt down, smiling warmly. "You can do more than that, kid. You can build one." The boy grinned, clutching the paper plane. It was moments like that, small, quiet, that meant everything. But life has a funny way of circling back. A few days later, Isabella received a message, a sealed letter from Victor Cross's lawyer. Inside, a simple handwritten note. "I lost everything trying to destroy you. He gained everything by doing what I never could. Believe in people. Don't waste that." She sat in silence for a long time, staring at those words. Even the ones who fall can sometimes speak the truth. She folded the letter gently and placed it in her drawer. Then she made a decision, one that would define Jetlux's legacy forever. At the next board meeting, Isabella stood before the executives, her voice calm, unshakable. "We will not sell the Falcon X," she announced. Gasps echoed around the room. She continued, "We're not here to cash out. We're here to build something that lasts. From today, Jetlux will open source 50% of our propulsion technology so that small innovators, schools, and independent engineers can build without limits." The board erupted in disbelief. "You're giving it away?" one shouted. Isabella smiled. "No, I'm giving it back to the people who believed in it." That night, Marcus found her sitting on the hangar steps, looking out at the runway. "You really did it," he said quietly. She turned. "You were right. Money doesn't fix what purpose builds." He smiled. "You're learning," she chuckled. "Maybe you should have been CEO." He shrugged. "Nah, too much talking, not enough fixing." They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries peace in it. Months later, the world saw a new generation of engineers emerge from the Jetlux program. Kids from forgotten cities building drones, electric planes, new engines that changed the way people traveled. And in every one of them, there was a little bit of Marcus Lang's fire. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Marcus stood in the hangar, alone, surrounded by silence and golden light. He ran his hand along the Falcon X one last time. It was more than a machine now. It was a promise, proof that greatness doesn't come from titles or wealth, but from the hands that refuse to give up. Then he heard footsteps. Isabella. She held 2 cups of coffee. "One last flight before the media swallows us again?" she asked. He smiled. "You read my mind." They boarded the Falcon X together. Engines hummed softly, lights glowing like stars. The runway stretched out before them, endless and free. As the jet lifted into the sky, clouds parting around it, Isabella looked at Marcus and said quietly, "You know, I used to think success was about being on top, but now I know. It's about lifting others with you." He smiled, eyes on the horizon. "And the best engines," he said, "are built by the ones who've been broken." The Falcon X soared higher, sunlight reflecting off its wings. Below, the city shrank, and somewhere in that glow, the sound of applause, laughter, and new beginnings beginnings echoed. Because, in the end, it wasn't about a jet. It wasn't about power. It was about people. The mocked mechanic. The humbled CEO. Two souls who found purpose in the wreckage. And in life, the truth always finds its way.